one.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another action-packed edition of the Chillin' with the Villain podcast. If you're a professional wrestling fan, or more importantly, a classic wrestling fan, then you've come to the right place. Here on the podcast, we don't give generic opinions. We don't give cliche answers. We watch classic wrestling, then we review it to you. You got myself, the one true villain, Marty Skell, a professional wrestling expert. And joining me today, as always, is Mr. Samuel Scott, my producer of the show. In today's episode, we're taking it back to No Way Out 2000. There's no easy way out. And this is a part of our Mick Foley first retirement story arc. So if you listen to the show regularly, you know that last week we covered Royal Rumble 2000. If you haven't listened to that already, go back and give it a listen. Today's episode, No Way Out 2000, which was supposed to be Mick Foley's first retirement. I'm pretty sure it was not, but we'll find out for sure next week as we review WrestleMania 2000. So a first time for us on the pod doing a little story arc like this. And if you enjoy it, please let us know. Sam, how did you find Royal Rumble 2000 is like your favorite show ever, and we got to do that last week. And today's episode, No Way Out 2000, I believe you've never seen this before.
Never seen it before, and it's like the sequel to my favorite. So that was super interesting to cover. Before we get on to the pay-per-view itself, you said we don't give cliched answers here on the podcast. Just wait until you've listened to my top 5 this week. You might want to revise that statement.
Well, don't give any spoilers away, Sam, but we do try to mix it up here on the podcast. We tried to give different perspectives. If you're not following us on social media already, please give us a follow at The Villain Pod. You can check out all our wonderful reels, which on Instagram, also on YouTube, and TikTok for you young people. I still haven't managed to get into the TikTok. I know there's not really much to get into, but it's still, I feel like it's not for me, Sam.
TikTok or social media in general?
Maybe social media in general, but definitely TikTok. I think I'm an Instagram man. If I had to pick any, you put a gun to my head, Instagram, I think, is the social media of choice.
Yeah, fair enough. For me, I mean, it's not social media, but it's YouTube for me. Speaking of YouTube, guys, if you use YouTube, subscribe.
If you use YouTube.
Which you do.
Subscribe.
So the vast majority of people who watch our shorts aren't subscribed, and that makes total sense. I just found out last night by looking at the stats that the vast majority of people who listen to our episodes on YouTube are also not subscribed. Isn't that shocking?
Well, it takes nothing to subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. We're doing this off our own backs. We're not making any money. Well, I say we're not making any money. We're not taking any money from you directly.
Yes.
So
we're technically losing money.
We are. So the least you can do is give us a follow and or give us a subscribe. Also, if you do enjoy the podcast, the plugs will be over in a second. But if you do enjoy the podcast and you would like a shout out on the podcast, then head over to, I don't even know where you would do it, Apple Podcasts, and give us a 5-star review. Write a little review for us and we'll read it out on the pods and we'll give you a shout out. So win-win in that case. So that really helps us out with the algorithms. So
yes,
win-win.
Indeed.
Well, we're hoping today's episode will be a win-win, and I say, why waste any time? So Sam, should we jump into
Let's find out. Yes. No Way Out 2000, which I keep trying not to call No Mercy because the last Hell in a Cell that I remember from around that time period is No Mercy 2002. And this whole time I was writing the script, I had to keep changing it to No Way Out. It's No Way Out 2000. Now,
is there too many pay-per-views with the word no in them, in the title?
Yes. There's not enough pay-per-views with yes in the title.
Well, there was it Yeselmania they called it with Bryan Danielson?
Bryan. Yeah,
that wasn't the official name, but yeah, maybe it should have been.
Yeah. No Way Out 2000. Now, like Marty said, I haven't seen this pay-per-view before, and I sort of had it in my head, as I know it's what you call like a B pay-per-view, that they might not put as much oomph into the video package opener, but they absolutely kill it with a Mick Foley monologue about how it's been his dream to headline WrestleMania, and that the best of the biz, Triple H, is like in his way. Then the question comes up is, well, is that not a dream, but instead a nightmare? To which Foley says, yes, it is, but it's my nightmare, and I decide when to wake up. As the motion graphics of the chains and locks overlay the images of Cactus Jack, basically saying that it's no way out for Triple H as he's locked in with Cactus Jack, which was really, really cool. It's like that bit in Watchmen. Have you seen the movie Watchmen, where Rorschach, after his prison fight scene, he says, I'm not locked in here with you, you're locked in here with me. It's basically that. 2 years, I think, before the movie came out, only Cactus Jack completely undermines it in the match itself by repeatedly trying to open the door and escape. But more on that later.
I just want to say, Sam, watching this, a thought went through my head. I feel like, I could be wrong, tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this is the first time I remember someone really sort of talking about wanting to main event WrestleMania like on TV, as opposed to I want to be world champion.
Yeah, as opposed to winning the championship.
Yeah, like I want to be in the main event of WrestleMania. Like obviously now everyone says that, and WrestleMania has become such a big deal. But back in the day, I don't really remember guys like the Ultimate Warrior and Hogan, and even Austin. Maybe Austin. Well, the same sort of time period. But the idea of I want to main event WrestleMania, Mick Foley, he's the first person that I can think of that kind of made that a thing.
I think you're right. I think that's true. Yeah, that's really interesting. Because
that's the thing. Like
he's like a homegrown, kind of. It would make sense for his character, right? Or him as a person. It's probably true.
Well, also, I feel like there was just more kayfabe back in the day, and now it seems like every wrestler in the WWE, they talk about how it was my dream to be here, and oh, I can't believe I've got an action figure, and I was in a video game. Oh, it was my dream to do WrestleMania. Whereas back then it was just, I'm going to kick your head in and take your championship. So it's definitely changed.
I think nowadays they got it from, like American Idol and the X Factor, and they say, why are you auditioning today? And they just be like, because I want to be a massive singer with millions of dollars and sell out arenas. It's like, okay, it's true.
Right.
Yeah, like I think it's the same thing. They just do that nowadays. I think they're taking it from reality TV.
Possibly, quite possibly.
The Hartford Civic Center, Hartford, Connecticut. So not too far from headquarters. A sold-out crowd, 12,551. Now, guess the buy rate. It's a B pay-per-view, remember, but still the year 2000 for WWE. So there's your clues.
Royal Rumble was, what was it, like 690 or something? Nearly?
Yeah, wild. Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to guess this is considerably down, but there is that big Hell in a Cell match with Foley. I'm going to guess maybe 390.
Dude, more. This is what surprised. I was thinking around 350. More, dude.
Wow. Big business in 2000. Was it 500?
Close, yeah. 480.
Big. For a B pay-per-view, it's pretty crazy, right?
That's nuts. And what's also nuts is the tagline, especially knowing, no spoilers, what happens at the end. The tagline, it's probably one of the best they've ever done. Let the game begin.
Interesting.
How cool is that?
Well, it's funny. So this is technically the first No Way Out, because they did No Way Out in 98, but it was one of the In Your Houses, and it was called No Way Out of Texas. And I guess they dropped the of Texas part and just made it No Way Out. And obviously it made kind of sense here with the Hell in a Cell main event, which also didn't make sense because Mick Foley kept talking about getting out of the cell and jumping off the top of it. So, but yeah, they had No Way Out for years. I think they had No Way Out until maybe 2008. And then they changed it to, well, now it's the Elimination Chamber. They also had it in, was it 2002 when they had No Way Out, but it was also the NWO's debut. which I thought was really cool, the way they sort of timed that, because obviously No Way Out.
Oh, NWO.
Kind of cool.
That.
But yeah, No Way Out, maybe one of the better B pay-per-views.
Yeah, I would say. So Elimination Chamber has taken like the slot of the calendar year from No Way Out, right?
Correct, yeah.
It's now Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber, WrestleMania. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay, so just like last week's episode, this show wastes no time in busting out Kurt Angle for the first match of the night, where he beats Chris Jericho for the IC belt in 10 minutes. Welcome to... No, have I screwed this up? It's just Hartford is Jericho. Okay. That's even worse than last week's.
What was last week's? The Royal Jericho? What was it last week?
No, it was... Oh, I know what it was. This week it's Welcome to Hartford is Jericho. And last week it was Welcome to Madison Square Jericho.
Well, it's funny. On the Royal Rumble 2000, The Rock cuts a promo. And typically, The Rock... we love The Rock's promos. But in it, he says, "Oh, I'm going to give you a glass of shut up juice," or like, "Go drink a glass of shut up juice." And I thought, shut up juice. That's pretty awful. Then one of the first things I see on this show, there's so many signs in the crowd, and there's a massive sign with someone that says, "Shut up juice." It did. I mean, I was going to say it never caught on, but obviously it did a little bit. But yeah, Jericho was a little bit adventurous. Well, I think it started with in WCW was obviously WCW Monday Nitro, and he changed it to WCW Monday Night Jericho. I was like, okay. Then he came to WWE, and it was Raw is Jericho. Okay. And I guess he was just swinging for the fences anywhere he went to get a cheap pop, I guess.
Now you've told me that, the idea of just like this guy who's just like so up his own ass that he just tries to fit his catchphrase into everything is actually funny. I actually like it now. It's great. He's just running his own thing into the ground wherever he goes.
Just like, Alabama is Marty. That's essentially what it is. Yeah. Well, we're saying about the cheap pop. We start the pay-per-view with a cheap heat promo from Kurt Angle, which is, I was just like, oh, I'm doing the exact same thing as last month. But Kurt Angle comes out, runs down the town. I feel like they still do this in WWE, and it always seemed a little bit odd, the fact that they would run down. I mean, I get it on like house shows or spot shows. You run down the town to get some heat. But they're doing this on worldwide pay-per-view. Do you know what I mean? It's the World Wrestling Entertainment. And so not only does the rest of America really care, but you've got the whole world to think of as well. So, but I guess people just find it entertaining either way. But yeah, Kurt Angle with Jericho here. This is still pretty early days in Kurt Angle's career, still pretty early days in Jericho coming to the WWF. And dude, they have a really, really hot opener. You can tell watching this match that these two are going to end up being big stars in the future, which they both were. Both, I think Kurt Angle's already in the Hall of Fame, and I'm sure Jericho will be at some point. And dude, like I said, it wasn't like both of them hadn't been in the company that long. I think Jericho since SummerSlam, Angle since Survivor Series, which was even, shorter. And Kurt Angle is super duper over. There's already lots of boos for Angle, signs in the crowd for Angle. But what surprised me, so many signs in the crowd for Jericho. Jericho's like super duper over here. And he was in Royal Rumble 2000. And to think that maybe he could have been in that WrestleMania 2000 main event, which we'll get onto next week, I feel like they should have done it, because he's definitely more over here than Big Show is. So
correct.
Without doubt. But no, Angle's just the best. We've said it a bunch of times on the podcast. How he got so good so quick is just unbelievable. Jericho's really finding his feet here. I did remember watching this. Early days of Chris Jericho used to use the double powerbomb quite a lot, where he would hit the powerbomb, then sandbag them up and hit it again. And I always remember me and my friends thought that was a super cool move when we were young. It didn't seem to last very long. I think it's something that he dropped after a while. I'm guessing it's because he did it in WCW, where he's wrestling cruiserweights, and then he came to the WWF and he's wrestling The Rock and Triple H and Kane.
Suddenly
and
harder now,
right. Suddenly a bit more difficult. This was, but like I said, really good match. My only gripe with this match, they did a finish, which I thought was pretty nice, where Jericho went to hit the lion salt on Kurt Angle, and the referee was distracted with. We also need to mention China, by the way. Here is still with Jericho, and am I right in saying that she has an entrance, a full entrance
of her own? I thought it was a triple threat, and then it's like, no, she's just with him, but gets her own. She's just
with Jericho with her own entrance with the firework gun. Am I safe in saying that China? I felt like in 1998, 1999, super duper over.
Hell yeah.
By time here in 2000, not so over, I felt. Am I right or wrong in saying that?
Well, last week you said that you felt like when she starts doing more kind of singles competitive matches, it exposed her a little bit. And I feel like with things like this, she's just in the way.
We're trying to find a place for her.
Seeing, And
I feel like
that shoved into our faces a bit much.
Yeah, like her in that bodyguard role where she was still protected, hadn't been exposed yet, seemed like the most over she could be. And I guess not long after this, maybe just after WrestleMania 2000 is where she's paired up with Eddie Guerrero, and they went on to do some really good stuff, and that maybe brought her up again. But then after she separated with Eddie, kind of floating again. And she ended up falling out with the company in the end because she felt like she was a really, really big superstar, which she was in 98 and early 99. But she felt like she deserved the same money as Steve Austin and The Rock. And obviously W didn't necessarily agree with her, and they couldn't come to terms of money, so they let her go. And I always thought it was a shame, really, just how things ended up with China. Have you seen that documentary on China?
Is it a Dark Side of the Ring? I haven't seen it.
No, it wasn't Dark Side of the Ring, but Vice did do a documentary on China, and because they were filming like with her before, or someone was filming with her, trying to make a documentary before she passed away. If you watch the documentary, dude, I told you, I've said in this show before, it's quite easy to make me cry. I was tearing up loads in this documentary, which is another reason why I didn't think the Iron Claw was that amazing, because I did not cry once, and I'm an easy person to make cry. But this China one, it's pretty depressing. And towards the end of her life, she's surrounded by these managers or friends or agents that are clearly taking advantage of her. Exploiting her. She's clearly not all there. She's clearly got a really bad relationship with drugs and everything else. And it's really, really quite sad. You just think, man, like, someone that seemed to have it all and had the world like at her fingertips, and then just let it all slip away and just went to such a dark place. Really sad how it ended up with China. But I've gone off on one here, I guess. But the point I was trying to make is China gets knocked down, the referee's with her, and Jericho does the lion salt, and Kurt Angle puts the European
or the catch him on the jaw. Yeah.
Yes, puts the belt up and smashes him in the face. Covers him, and the referee comes in 1, 2, 3, but he didn't throw the belt out of the ring. I just thought, like, such a small detail, but just makes such a big difference. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you threw out the ring, referee came in, covered, like, that's really like, oh, he stole the victory, like a thief in the night. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If a thief does something, they try and hide the evidence, right? Do you know what I mean? Kurt Angle didn't do that here, so realistically, the referee should have came in, being like,
what the hell is this doing here? Yeah.
Why is the belt on the floor? Disqualification or whatever. So coming into this match, Kurt Angle was the European champion, and then he beat Chris Jericho for the IC title, which Jericho had only like officially won by himself at the previous Royal Rumble. So now Kurt Angle becomes the Intercontinental and European champion. Do you feel like this may have been the perfect time to unify the belts? Because I'm going to ask this question to the Chillins. That's all the listeners to the Chillin' with the Villain podcast. Has there ever been a more useless championship belt in the WWE than the European Championship? Because you could argue the light heavyweight championship, but at least that still at some points gave a little purpose to some of the smaller guys.
A certain category. Yeah.
Right. And you get a fun match on Sunday Night Heat. The European Championship literally never meant anything ever. Even when, so Bulldog was the first person to win it, when they did like a European tour and did a tournament to win it. He then lost it to Shawn Michaels at the British pay-per-view one night only to try and get heat in the UK. Not sure if it's the best idea. And then from there, it just meant absolutely nothing for years and years and years. So just really bizarre why they had this European title, which was hardly ever held by European Zipa.
No, it wasn't. Yeah. What
No.
actually did happen to it?
They unified it eventually with the Intercontinental title in 2002 or 3, I want to say.
Okay.
I can't remember who was the last European champion. Maybe Jeff Hardy? Maybe he unified it with Rob Van Dam. I can't remember. But yeah, for years that belt just did absolutely nothing. But clearly, this is another reason why I thought the Royal Rumble 2000 was strange that we reviewed last week. So Kurt Angle, he puts over Tazz, basically gets squashed by Tazz in 3 minutes. Here, they're like ultra pushing him. He's won the European title. Now they put the Intercontinental title. He's less than 6 months into his WWE career. They're really going for it here with Kurt Angle. And I'm guessing before that Tazz match, he was undefeated. Maybe they just wanted to get away from the undefeated thing because obviously the more you build that, the more you've got to try and work your way out of it. So maybe they just thought, let's not do undefeated with him. Let's do something else because they probably thought we want to push Kurt Angle, but we still want him to be a character that can lose, from time to time. But this is just a great sign of the future main event of the WWE.
Yeah, for sure. And a solid opener for this pay-per-view. It was very enjoyable. Next up, the Dudley Boys have 2 words for the New Age Outlaws. 3D, apparently, as they take the tag team belts off of the Outlaws' hands in 5 minutes. But what is it about the New Age Outlaws matches feeling double the length that they actually are? I've actually written that. It's true.
It's funny. During this match, I think it's the King refers to the New Age Outlaws, or at least suggests that they're the greatest tag team in WWF history. And for a while, yes, they had the very over introduction. But one, it felt like they didn't even team up that much and their run together wasn't that long. And 2, dude, I can't think of like any good New Age Outlaw matches at all. And I loved them as a kid, but yeah, the matches certainly weren't great. And again, here, I think they're still supposed to be heels here, but they kind of turned babyface for this match. People don't, again, I spoke about this last week. People always talk about how NWO ended up so messed up and everything else. People never talk about how DX, the booking went off the rails of DX, like people leaving, heel turns, face turns, getting back together. The whole booking of DX in 99 and 2000 was just not good. Surely. I think the most exciting thing about this is they show a replay from I believe the SmackDown previous where Billy Gunn did a famous to Bubba Ray Dudley for a table, which sounds cool, but it's even more cool because Bubba Ray Dudley was stood bent over on the table and he's like high up there, big guy, and Billy Gunn just hits the ropes and he jumps. It must be at least 6 foot in the air to do this famous on Bubba Ray Dudley. The timing and everything to go into that and the athleticism, that's probably the most impressive thing I've ever seen Billy Gunn do. That was really, really quite cool. And it's like very brave for them to try and pull off. I do question why Bubba Ray Dudley was just stood on the table bent over. You can see that part. I don't know how they set the move up, but that was pretty impressive. And it makes you wonder, why did they do that on SmackDown? Why didn't they save that for the for the pay-per-view? But this match was all right. Another screw finish, another weapon involved in the finish. I think Bubba Ray hit Billy Gunn in the shoulder with a pipe. Yeah, and then Road Dogg got the victory. So this is the Dudley Boys. I think the Dudley Boys are still heels here, and I feel like it's not long after this when they turn babyface. But no, they're definitely heating up somewhat with the tag team division because later we're going to see Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys. Yeah. Feels like they're phasing the Outlaws out and they're kind of pushing the new generation of tag teams, which obviously the Dudley Boys are a part of that.
It's exactly what it felt like. Yeah, it was good. It was good. Made the Dudley Boys look strong. I actually didn't mind this match.
Yeah, it was. Oh, they nailed that. We spoke before about how amazing the Dudley Boys are a majority of the time hitting the 3D. They hit a really smooth, crisp one here.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah. So yeah, and it was a good match as well. It's not the best tag match on the card. We'll get there. So They show Mark Henry and Viscera attacking each other backstage by an ambulance. And of course, this has a Sunday Night Heat logo in the top right. Because when else could this caliber of shit happen other than during Heat? So I believe Viscera, I may be wrong on this, but I believe Viscera attacking Mae Young, because that's why Mark Henry and Viscera are now fighting, while she was pregnant, is what gave her a hand, if you will, in it turning out as a somewhat abnormal birth, shall we say. Then we have this match where Mark Henry pins Viscera, blah, blah, blah. Two big guys. Mae Young gets pushed over quite hard, which was kind of weird, but I don't know, there's something about her. Was it her or Fabulous Moolah? I think it was Mae Young who got powerbombed through a table by the Dudleyz.
Mae Young.
That was Mae Young. So she takes some stuff, man.
Well, I feel like you're underestimating this whole thing. We see a video package and we see Viscera big splashing Mae Young, and the commentary team are screaming, he just big splashed a 77-year-old pregnant lady. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching this and I'm thinking, Vince Russo is not in the company at the time, right? So like this,
so you've got no excuse,
right? Like I feel like anything that bad that happened in the WWF, everyone always blames Vince Russo, and now it makes you question maybe it wasn't Vince Russo, because this is, well, we're in the year 2000 and they're doing angles where a 77-year-old lady is pregnant, and not only that, but she's being squashed by a 500-pound man. I said, like, pretty distasteful. Pretty, like, I have no idea. Clearly, this is one of those things where they're in the writer's room and someone's joking about, like, oh, we should, first of all, it was like the rib started off like, oh, maybe, Mark Henry's a ladies' man. Like, oh, what ladies can we get? Oh, we can get Mae Young. Oh, ha, ha, ha. That's good shit, pal. So now they're putting Mark Henry with Mae Young. I mean, the theory is actually this, that Mark Henry was Olympian. He was the world's strongest man.
Yes.
And the WWF signed him to like a 10-year deal when they first signed him in 95 or 96. And they brought him in and he just wasn't getting it. Like, it just felt like he wasn't getting any better and better. So the rumor is, or the conspiracy theory is that they were trying to do so much with him to make him quit, right? To get out of this 10-year deal, contract, paying him all this money, right? And I mean, he obviously loved the business if he didn't quit from this stuff. But I can guess, yeah, it started off their dating. Then it obviously went to, oh, wouldn't it be funny if Mae Young was pregnant? Then it obviously evolved. Oh, wouldn't it be funny if she got splashed and lost the baby? I mean, she did. She gave birth to a hand, but
yeah.
But they did do I think Russo did do a miscarriage angle with Terry Runnels, I want to say, but yeah, really, really distasteful. And then even more distasteful than that, we have to watch Viscera versus Mark Henry, a very green Mark Henry. And dude, this was like, I felt like they might pull it out the bag, but they did not. And this is what I would call like Mark booking, when you'll see online, you see people like, oh, I want to see Great Khali versus Kane. It's like, no, it's not going to be like the two big guys together. It's not going to be a good match. The crowd is chanting boring very early on. Boring. And the commentary team are trying their hardest. At one point, I think it's Jim Ross, he says, oh, well, I know Mark is the world's strongest man, but maybe he has the world's strongest sperm as well. And he also says, oh, this is not going to be a pretty matchup. And he knew what he was doing with that. And in my notes, all I have is, well, actually I have both Viscera and Mark Henry come out to complete silence. And how did this end up on pay-per-view? This would have been perfect for the pre-show Monday or Sunday Night Heat. The only time the crowd came up with this is when Mae Young ran out to the ring, actually. So, yeah, not the not exactly the way I want to spend my evenings watching matches like this. But we do it for you, the people.
But we do. You beat me to it. Yeah, but we do it. We do it for you. We get a shot of the commentary team, and in the background, someone's holding up a sign saying on a piece of cardboard saying "Call Matto," and his phone number clearly on display. I called it. It's still his number.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Did you speak to him?
Yeah.
What did he say?
Matto's his surname. Yeah, and it's still his number.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. Did you say I'm watching you on No Way Out?
It wasn't him. It was a friend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
I was like, I got your number from No Way Out. You know what I'm like. When I see an old phone number on these pay-per-views, I have to call them. Anyways, Terry hires the APA as the Dudleyz keep tabling women. so immediately I'm back in.
I love this idea. Just like, those Dudleyz just keep like grabbing
those
women.
Darn Dudleyz.
And they're trying to like break furniture with women, like small women. Like, what's going on? And they're like, and they do it for a while to get heat, but it backfires because people really enjoy it in terms of babyface.
I know, dude. It's so funny.
Jeez.
Yeah, so Terry hires the APA to protect her as the Dudleys keep tabling women. So as the manager of the Hardyz, still at this point, she, and by extension, the APA, are down by ringside for the next match as the Hardyz lose. They lost, even with the APA and Terry, to Edge and Christian in a near 17-minute match to decide the Tag Team Championship #1 contenders. So this was a good match from like an in-ring jaunt perspective, but I was like, who were the bad guys and who were the good guys at the time? Like, what was going on here? It's kind of like, what story are they selling me?
I was also confused. I think at the time they were still trying to work it out because for a minute, the Hardy Boys were the heels with Gangrel was the new brood and the Edge of Christian with the baby faces. Then they had those series of matches and they had the ladder match where the Hardy Boys actually won Terry Runnels as their manager. And I feel like from there, they were all baby faces. And here, it seemed like at the start, the Hardy Boys are trying to lean more heel, but then that kind of changed. Basically, eventually, obviously, we know it turns into Edge and Christian becoming the heels and the Hardy Boys becoming the big baby faces, which is definitely correct. You know, it's funny we watch these two pay-per-views in a row with Terry Runnels as the Hardy Boys manager, the valet. That just did not work, huh? It seemed super out of place, right? Like they were clearly just trying to find something for Terry to do. They felt like the Hardy Boys maybe needed a bit more razzmatazz, maybe a bit more oops. So they tried this out, didn't work. Obviously later on when they put Lita with the Hardy Boys, that really, really worked.
That clicked, yep.
Yeah, here with Terry Runnels, I remember watching this at the time and assuming that now Terry had joined Edge and Christian, and that was not the case. And I wonder if that was an idea that they floated around and got turned down. But yeah, it's quite fun to watch these old matches of Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys. I did feel like this one was kind of long and not as enjoyable as I thought it might be. But I do find it really fun watching young Hardy Boys because obviously this is before either of them are broken down at all. And Jeff Hardy in particular did a lot more high flying than he would as he got older. I mean, that makes sense, but especially in this sort of, you know, in like 98, 99, early 2000, we saw Jeff doing like split-legged moonsaults and 450 splashes and acai moonsaults and all this kind of stuff, which he didn't really do. Like, obviously he was still a high flyer, but he kind of had his set moves and that was that. Here he seemed like he took a lot more risks, and I think Matt Hardy did as well. But clearly these guys all just trying to make a name for themselves. Clearly the WWE had a lot of faith in them, even here, because they gave him 17 minutes and the tag team title match only had 5 minutes. So, but yeah, the end of the match. Oh, also I should say this, I'm pretty sure this was kind of the start of the APA, the Acolytes Protection Agency. This might have been the first time someone hired them, which obviously turned more into actual APA rather than the Acolytes, as they were called.
So before we get to the end of the match, midway through, have you ever heard such a big pop from the crowd that is just 50% by gender before this match? Because the Hardys take their tops off and every girl in the crowd pops and no guy in the crowd pops. It was so funny.
That's such a great spot, man, just hulking up and taking his shirt off.
I know.
Such a good spot. Well, I thought they were going to do it where, you know, Jeff took off his shirt, big pop. Matt Hardy took his shirt off, big pop. And I thought they were all going to stop and look at Terry Runnels, you know?
Camera pans over to Terry, who's like, ooh, yeah.
Right. And she's wearing that top. She's got that. She may have invented this. I don't know. I feel like she was the first person I ever saw this, but the, what would you call it? Like bottom boob
Yes.
She's got the bottom parts of her boob showing, or bottom cleavage. What would you call it? Well, no, that could be something else. You get what I'm trying to say.
I get what you're trying to say. Yeah, it's her No Mercy N64 outfit as well.
Okay, there we go. So after the match, the APA end up beating up the Hardy Boys. And we've had this debate on the show before, you and I, about how much you like the Dominator and how I've kind of crapped on the Dominator and said, it's not a very safe move and he really struggles to hit it on people. And you're like, I think it's a good move. Here, he tries to hit it on Jeff Hardy and botches it pretty bad and just drives him straight on his head. It was so dangerous.
It was absolutely brutal, wasn't it?
Oh, geez. Like, Jeff Hardy must just think, like, I'm taking all these high risks and I'm fine. And then Farouk just comes in here and just completely drives me on my head. Like, man.
Like on the top of his shoulders and his head. Like, it was gross. Yeah, absolutely nasty. Yeah.
It was brutal. I imagine that, like, just getting through a 17-minute match and be like, oh, yeah, I'm fine. But then you get screwed over, getting hit with a botched Dominator. Yeah, Farouk needed to scrap that move. That is not a good wrestling move.
Right.
I'm going to say I thought this match was a little bit underwhelming. I thought disappointing.
It sounds like you didn't enjoy it as much as I did, but I will agree it was a little long, but I actually enjoyed it. Big Show shows footage of The Rock's feet touching the ground in the 2000 Royal Rumble, which we covered last week. He's absolutely right. He did win the Royal Rumble, but unfortunately, he's so boring to listen to that nobody listened to him. Almost as exciting as the Big Show talking, we have Big Boss Man with Prince Albert taking on Tazz, who wins via disqualification, in which could be the shortest match in the history of the podcast. It's like 45 seconds, depending on...
Was it that short?
Yeah.
It was basically an angle,
Yeah.
So, well, because I completely forgot this, but the Big Boss Man was accompanied by Prince Albert. I forgot that they were a pair for a short while, I guess. And so I guess the story is here, the Boss Man and Tazz start the match. Like you said, maybe 45 seconds into it, I think Prince Albert gets involved. The referee rings the bell, and Prince Albert and Bossman double team Tazz, and they beat him up. They go to leave, but Tazz won't stay down, so they keep beating him up, but he keeps not staying down. He keeps getting back up, and the whole story is he won't stay down. And I thought it was quite interesting, even on Tazz's entrance, where we remember in ECW, they kind of portrayed him as this killer, this monster, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Whereas here in the WWE, he's coming out and the commentary are kind of putting him over as like a life overachiever. Obviously, they're talking about the fact that he's a lot smaller. I just thought like, dude, this whole angle with Tazz, his debut was less than 5 weeks before. You compared that debut compared to here, clearly they'd already lost a lot of faith between these two pay-per-views. And dude, like, obviously the big issue with Tazz, especially for the time, is that he was too small. And it's like, what should we do? Should we feed him Taki Michinoku or Scotty Tuoli? It's like, no, we're going to put him with the Big Boss Man, who's legit probably 6'5", at the very least 6'6". Prince Albert, another giant. Tazz looked tiny here, right? And this whole little angle they did, crowd is dead. They do not care, and it's not a good angle. Ooh, like things really fell off a cliff for Tazz.
His downward trajectory is just like a
right?
I mean, next week when we cover WrestleMania 2000, we'll see him. That's when he fights with Jerry Lawler, right?
No, I think Tazz in WrestleMania 2000, he's in the Hardcore Battle Royal. But I mean, at least he made the WrestleMania card, because do you remember like years later when they brought Scott Steiner into the WWE and he debuted at Survivor Series? He wrestled Triple H at the Royal Rumble. I think in the pay-per-view in between, maybe he wrestled Triple H again. And then by time WrestleMania, he's not even on the card, right? But Tazz, just a horrible angle. Dude, Bossman as well, like, it's weird. Like, Bossman in the late 80s, early 90s, loved him. Awesome. In 99, 2000, kind of felt like the Bossman sucked. I just like...
Oh, yeah, totally. He fell off,
This is where, well, actually, the last two matches, I felt like the crowd really kind of died off, and it was quite noticeable, which during this time, it felt like the crowd was never really dead. It gets picked up for the next match. But yeah, the crowd was kind of odd all night. Just the thing you mentioned before this match, Big Show, I was talking last week about how Big Show looked like such a scruff last week when he had the long hair, the really bad, cheap looking cycling shorts, and like a t-shirt that he's wearing. Here, he's at least cut his hair shorter and he looks a little bit better. But like in the video package, I can't remember, this might be later, but they show Big Show from last year's WrestleMania coming to the ring. And he looks amazing. He's just big, wearing trunks, and he has his long hair tied up in a ponytail.
Yeah.
Looks like a badass. And it felt like within however long it was, 8-9 months, just started looking awful. And his trajectory, boom, it really goes down because he was in WCW, he was in the main event scene, world champion, I think a few times at least in WCW, always a main eventer. They bring him into the WWF. He debuts by attacking Stone Cold Steve Austin. They kind of push him. They have him up there. He wins the world title for a brief period. Then here he's kind of slipping down the card. Well, I say that he main events WrestleMania 2000. Then I want to say by Backlash after that, that's when he starts doing the gimmick where he's dressing up as other wrestlers. I don't know if you remember, he dressed up as like Rikishi and Godfather and Hogan. Jeez. Then after that, they send him to OVW, right? Like, yeah, because it's just like, this guy, he's lazy and he's not good. And he wasn't. Obviously, he went on to be a terrific wrestler, but yeah, little rough here. But he was totally right. The Rock's feet definitely hit the floor, and that wasn't planned. That was obviously a mistake, which then they decided to turn into a storyline, which I thought was a pretty clever idea.
Yeah, me too. Adds a air of like legitimacy to the sport side of it, you know, when you're starting to question results.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, RIP Tazz's career right here. When you're doing jobs for like Prince Albert and stuff, like, oof.
Yeah. Oof. Talking of trajectories just diminishing, let's talk about Kane and Xpac's friendship, which was a lovely thing. It was a lovely thing.
One of my favorites in 99 when they were a tag team. I loved Xpac and Kane. This was like peak of my fandom, and I'm still playing wrestling on the school grounds, and I would be Xpac and my bigger friend would be Kane, and we loved Xpac and Kane. And I was genuinely pretty disappointed and upset when they turned on each other. I was like, oh man.
We'll get to that, but yeah, so Kane and Xpac's friendship diminishes after Xpac betrays Kane for seemingly no reason. And there's this hilarious shot of Kane all forlorn, walking off into the night with his head like dangling by his side, you know, with his arms dangling. Ooh, he's just so dejected and fed up with life. Just walking into the city, right? But he's Kane, like he's in his full Kane gear. It's just, I don't know, it's something like out of a comic book, you know, or something. It was hilarious. Anyways, this sets up a no DQ match with Kane versus Xpac, with Xpac defeating Kane in 7 minutes, which wasn't bad. It was kind of fun, but I'd rather just have this never happen and we would just still have more Kane and Xpac, honestly. I don't think it was worth it. What do you reckon? Or do you reckon it ran its course by then?
I certainly think it's better than having Xpac turn heel again and reforming the new heel McMahon Helmsley D-Generation X, which no one really seemed to enjoy. Thing is, tag teams, they've always got to end up breaking up. I feel like, I just feel like Xpac's so much a better baby. I'm sure he enjoyed playing heel, but I feel like he's a better babyface. And it seemed like the obvious thing to have done was have Kane turn on Xpac. Maybe that's why they did what wasn't obvious. But you're missing one of the big points here was that Tori, and we're not talking about Tori Wilson, we're talking about the original Tori. She was with Kane and she betrayed him and joined Xpac. And the storyline was that Tori was the first ever love or girlfriend of Kane and kind of telling like a Beauty and the Beast type storyline. And then she cheats on him and joins Xpac and she makes out with Xpac and Kane is all, you know, like you said, dejected and everything else. It's very interesting and I wonder why. But the WWE have never ever celebrated nor even really mentioned Tori at all throughout history. And they've pretty much celebrated everyone, the women's wrestlers. I mean, they don't with Sable, I don't think. And that's because I guess they had a bunch of lawsuits with her. They don't with Sunny anymore, but they did. Sunny's in the Hall of Fame. But then a bunch of the women, you know, like Ivory and Jacqueline, like years later, they've celebrated them. And obviously like the big ones like Lita and Trish and everything else. and, Tori Wilson, blah, blah, blah. But for some reason, they've never, ever mentioned Tori. Like, she doesn't get like a Legends figure. She just doesn't turn up in video packages, nothing. And it seems quite odd. I mean, I know she didn't really do that much, I guess, in her WWF career, but she was still there from, 99, 2000, early 2001. I guess it was a short run, but it was like at the height of pro wrestling, right? Like the most popular period. So you'd assume that she'd at least maybe get, turn up in a video package or
some
something.
Sort of recognition. Yeah.
Every year they're looking for legends for the Women's Royal Rumble. And, I'm assuming she's probably not that old, still probably quite young. I always wondered about that. Like, why do we not hear anything about Tori?
She may have not done loads, but I feel like she served her purpose very well, like this match as well in particular. Obviously, when she gets tombstoned, the crowd goes nuts. They love that kind of thing, don't they? Yeah. Noticed wardrobe malfunction during that tombstone. Did you? Where you popped out?
I did. Well, Tori as well, she was a women's wrestler before this. I think her name is Terry's Power or something like that. But no, going back to the match, I thought it was a really quite well-worked match, I thought. Obviously, it's Xpac, great worker.
Yeah,
Kane, definitely. This is kind of like prime years Kane. He can still move really well. And they keep it moving. There's a lot of action. And I think it shows how good of a worker Xpac is. The fact that he's a lot smaller than Kane, but they managed to work the match where it's competitive and it keeps moving the whole entire time.
Oh, it's an exceptionally well-crafted match.
Yes, really.
For sure.
And Xbox is such a good mover, such a good bumper. I had forgotten about Paul Bearer's short run here where he came back to manage Kane for a little while, which I actually thought was quite a nice touch. Again, one of the biggest pops in this match when Paul Bearer, the kind of old man, is chasing Tori around the ring and the crowd's going nuts like, yeah, get her, kill the bitch. Like, crowd's just going nuts for it. My big gripe with this, can I have a gripe? Tori takes the tombstone and she pretty much walks back to the back. And I'm thinking if Tori gets tombstone, she needs to be stretched
out on the stretcher with the neck brace. Yeah.
Right. She was like 10 seconds later up and kind of, she had an arm over a referee, but she's still kind of walking to the back. I'm like, I assume she would have got in trouble for that as soon as she got through that curtain, surely. But yeah, that seemed a little bit odd to me. But like I said, at the time, I was very disappointed by this whole feud because I just love them so much together. But I feel like this is probably one of the best matches so far. But the opener was really good as well. So yeah, good match.
It was enjoyable for sure. Yep. Michael Cole interviews the Radicalz, and they just take turns saying the exact same thing. I really like these guys, and I appreciate them more now I'm older, especially being Malenko. Yeah. So obviously, I always like Eddie, and I've always liked Chris Benoit. But watching them now, like in this match, it's like, God damn, they're all awesome. They're all so good, man.
All just, in the ring, definitely. Like, and we've spoken about it before, just how the Radicalz, maybe they don't really get credit, obviously, probably because of what happened to Benoit and, Perry Saturn kind of, he's had his issues as well. And obviously Eddie died young. But the Radicalz coming in here, I really felt like upped the work rate standard of the WWF and they kind of pushed everyone else to kind of be better. But go on, get onto this match.
They also had a bop for their entrance music, which we get to hear as the four horsemen of the 2000s enter the ring to get defeated by Too Cool and Rikishi in 12 minutes, 38 seconds. Yes, you heard that right. Too Cool defeated the Radicalz.
Well, you say that, and even though, the Radicalz definitely better in-ring workers, you cannot deny that Too Cool and Rikishi
super over.
Very, very, very over here. And they were good wrestlers in their
own right,
in their own right as well. Honestly, I thought the star of this match it's funny because he didn't really get much opportunity in the WWF, but Dean Malenko was really good in this match. He kept like running away from Rikishi and he showed a lot of character. It feels like he came to the WWF and either someone said to him or he told himself, okay, I've got to show character in the WWF now. I can't be just a wrestler. In this match, he shows a ton of character.
Tremendous amount of character. And I love how his character that he shows, that he's a great technical wrestler and he shows character, and that character also involves being a great technical wrestler. So he's like, tries to get his hits in when he can, like against the leg, or he's trying to keep the the flow of the match in his corner and stuff like that. So when he's showing it, he's still being an amazing technical wrestler. It just feels very organic. Like his character that he shows seems really like true to like form. And I thought it was exceptionally well done. And that's why I'm saying I didn't pick up on that stuff when I was a kid, like at all. Because Dean Malenko, he's not glamorous. Like he's not larger than life or, ridiculous or peacocking, So I didn't notice any of this, but now I watch it now. I'm like, damn, this is brilliant. Yeah.
And I feel like it's something like, obviously things like that, his work, it kind of holds up now. You go back and watch it like, oh, it's still really, really good. The story of this match, I guess the Radicalz had injured Rikishi's leg in the lead up to this pay-per-view match. Did you notice? So Rikishi's got a injured leg, so he's wearing a bandage over his kick pad. Is that not just the most ridiculous thing ever? Like, doesn't make any sense. Like, oh, just to show the people my leg is hurt, but we've put the bandage over my kick pads and boots, which makes just no sense whatsoever. But I thought Rikishi had a really good showing here as well. And
he did.
The Radicalz, like I said, they definitely push people to work harder in the ring. And I also felt like you was like, oh, 2 cool, 1 that's kind of surprising. But like we said, they were super duper over here. So Rikishi was obviously getting really great reactions to the point where the WWE were like, okay, we're going to try and push him as a main eventer. And I don't really understand what their mindset was, because he got super duper over as a babyface. So now they're like, oh, for his main event run, we're going to turn him heel. And it just did not work. My question, I guess, to you and the Chillins, the listeners of the Chillin' with the Villain podcast, do we think Rikishi could have worked how he was here as a main eventer? I feel like it definitely would have been better than his heel run as a main eventer. I guess the thing with Rikishi wasn't the best at promos, and that's always going to hold someone back. Right. And I don't know if having a real big fat ass showing is a kind of a main event characteristic.
Caliber characteristic, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why when he turned heel, I felt like he should have changed the gimmick up slightly as well and got rid of the thong, maybe covered up, and probably got rid of the stink face if he was going to be a heel, big like monster heel. Maybe just more like, I don't know, Yokozuna or whatever else. But
I feel like he had the talent for it. Like,
yeah, he was very good in the ring.
He's a good wrestler.
Size,
yeah. And like Rikishi Driver's like a real move. Like that's solid. So he's impressive.
He is.
But,
he is. Yeah. And Perry Saturn.
Sorry, go on.
Go on, sorry. You go.
I was just saying, like, I just don't think, like, maybe he could have worked as a main eventer. You're right, like the talking aspect may have held him back, but I don't feel like we missed anything without him, like that, with him not being one. Like my mum, for example, loves Rikishi exactly where he is. He's the funny fat guy who dances on Sunday Night Heat. People just like remember that. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, absolutely not.
Similar to what we were saying right at the start with Mick Foley being like, "Oh, it's always my dream to headline WrestleMania." I think it's fine that not everyone headlines, WrestleMania, and we'll just have their slots. And Rikishi, I think, is a good example of that.
Well, I completely agree with you. The only reason I bring it up is because they tried the main event run with him and it did not work. And I'm just wondering, maybe it could have worked better at least if he just, because here he's super duper over, So,
Speaking of the character work, by the way, just one little thing that I noticed when I said Michael Cole interviews Radicalz, and they always say the exact same thing. They basically just talk about how much they hate dancing. Anyways, and then during the match, whenever like the threat of dancing was about to happen, particularly Perry Saturn and Dean Malenko just got like so incensed. Like whenever Scotty Tehoda's about to bust out the worm, they're like, no! Like they just had to like break up the dancing. It's just...
Don't you dare dance in our technical wrestling match.
It was hilarious. I loved it.
Very funny.
Really good. All right. So throughout the night, Kurt Angle has been celebrating his win from the first match with all the fans backstage, which is kind of funny because at the start when he was getting his cheap heat, he's like, I'm going to give you, a hero. And you think, okay, this is Kurt Angle doing his thing where he's just like too smarmy for his own good and the fans get annoyed with him. But then like backstage, it turned out it actually worked and everyone's like patting on the back and he's having the best time ever. And it's still going on. And it's pretty funny because I just had the thought that he had to be like on all night. Okay, Kurt, the camera's coming back to you. He's just got to be like tearing it up with all these fans and messing around. I just thought it was like a funny picture in my head that he had to just be backstage all night pretending he's in party mode.
Yeah, I always wondered when they do these bits, like they do it, and I'm always wondering, like, what are all those fans doing, like hanging out in the foyers? You know what I mean? Like outside of the seats, basically outside the arena. Do you know what I mean? Like they obviously, one person sees Kurt Angle there in a camera, and they're like, "Oh, come on!" And everyone runs out from their seats to, so they can be on TV. I don't know. It's. I always found that kind of interesting, actually.
So the Royal Rumble shenanigans from last week with the Big Show and the Rock's feet touching the ground lead up to the next ruckus of the night, where the Big Show defeats the Rock, which surprised me, albeit with the help of Shane McMahon, who got a massive pop, by the way, in around 9 minutes. You went oof.
Well, the reason I went oof is because the Big Show beat The Rock when Shane McMahon came in, got a massive pop, but then he turned heel and hit The Rock over the head with a steel chair, and that was enough to beat The Rock, which is funny because last week on the Royal Rumble 2000, we were commenting on how many chair shots there were to the head that were just like transitional move, like, do you know what I mean? Just like setups, like I smashed you in the head with a chair so you will lay on a table or whatever it might be. Here, they probably did it right, where a chair shot to the head is a finish. Do you know what I mean? And it's weird, like they weren't very consistent really with their selling, which wrestling as a whole is kind of all over the place. But for example, Billy Gunn earlier got hit in the arm with a pipe, and he really sold it good, actually. I thought he sold it excellent. And that led to the finish of the match. And then we even see later him backstage, and he's all messed up from the shot with the pipe. And I was like, oh, that's really, really good. And that's how you should protect the weapons, like now we're watching TV, it would just be like they'd be hitting him multiple times with the pipe, and then the guy would blow a whole comeback and be fine. Do you know what I mean? But here they made it mean something. And I do wonder, actually, maybe after that Royal Rumble 2000 show, because there were so many like chair shots and everything else, maybe someone said, hey guys, we need to start reeling it back and we need to start protecting the gimmicks. Do you know what I mean? Because they sold it with Billy Gunn earlier, sold it, Jericho lost with the belt shot, and then here the Rock gets defeated with a flying Shane McMahon steel chair headshot. So a little bit more sort of consistent on this show. But obviously I love the Rock. Rock wasn't really the greatest in the ring, but obviously he's just so entertaining and so electrifying, as he puts it. And Big Show, never really a big fan of the Big Show. By this point, watching this match, I was kind of like, kind of ready to get this to the main event, maybe get the show over. But the crowd loved it. Rock super duper over. Dude, when he rock bottomed Big Show and set him up for the people's elbow, which he did not end up hitting, but went for it, the crowd comes completely unglued, just goes absolutely nuts. Do you know what I mean? Like Rock was super duper over, that's for sure, right? Jeez.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, now, one last thing. You notice the Big Show's one earring, big gold earring. It was very, very year 2000.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you're a giant.
From his look, and you got, You
don't need the earring, really.
You don't need your jewelry. So I enjoyed this match, and I was surprised that the Big Show was going to beat The Rock. Now, you've seen this pay-per-view before, right? I know you've at least seen the Hell in a Cell main event, but you've seen the pay-per-view? Yeah, I haven't. So that kind of surprised me, and spoiled for the next match. I thought it's nice to have two matches in a row where just I genuinely couldn't tell who was going to win, So that was really cool. So that helped it. And obviously Shane McMahon coming back, that was a good bit. So I feel like some of the shenanigans that this match had, and the Xpac and Kane match had some good shenanigans as well. I feel like the shenanigans helped save this match for me. I thought it was kind of good. It was interesting.
Well, it's funny because this match is to find out who's going to wrestle for the World Championship at WrestleMania.
Right. And then,
so at this point, it's like, the main event of WrestleMania. I remember thinking this at the time. It's going to be Big Show versus Triple H. Ugh. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And it kind of was with some extras.
All this mess obviously leads to this four-way, and then they throw the McMahons in for whatever reason. And I guess we're going to talk about it next week, but I'm just going to mention now when it's on my mind. Why didn't they just do The Rock versus Triple H? That was the WrestleMania match. That's what they should have done. They end up doing that the next pay-per-view Backlash, where The Rock beats Triple H for the world title. And it's like, why did they not just do that at WrestleMania 2000? I don't know. The booking seemed kind of like all over the place back here. Like they were doing so many twists and turns. It was kind of Russo-esque. I don't know if his influence is still sort of laid over, but there's simplicity in some booking, but that at the same time, we're in WrestleMania season now, and we're not sure what the WrestleMania.
I was just going to say it feels kind of similar to the 2000s arc,
right? And it's fun. Like
a lot of these decisions seem kind of like last minute, or didn't really have a solid plan.
It's funny because 99 Royal Rumble, Vince McMahon won it, and obviously he did not go on to main event WrestleMania. And here, The Rock wins the Royal Rumble, but then here, the next pay-per-view, he's lost his number one contendership. So back then, you couldn't really tell what the main event of Mania was going to be, which has been the last sort of month or so with wrestling. So interesting. And obviously, The Rock's involved in both. So very interesting.
Do you like having no idea how something is going to pan out? Something of this magnitude, like WrestleMania?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think anytime you can get the fans asking questions and guessing and just not knowing. Like, here's the thing with the whole thing. We're going to really briefly. We've decided not to talk about any contemporary stuff because it changes every day. And by the time our podcast goes out, it's changed like 10 times already. But in terms of Cody with his story, it's like, okay, we know how he finishes the story, right? It's like, we know what happens. So why don't we enjoy the ride leading up to it? Do you know what I mean? And you might want it at WrestleMania, but at the same time, wrestling it's not a movie. It's not a 2.5 hour movie. It's actually 52 weeks a year. And it just goes on and on.
Constantly evolving. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, okay, once Cody finishes the story, then what? They might, and they've got something good with this whole thing. Clearly, people are interested. Maybe they should just keep it going for as long as they can. Obviously, you want to strike when the iron's hot. You don't want to go too much where it's like people lose faith in Cody. But at the moment, it seems like everyone's invested. So, like, I think to the fans, that were complaining and everything else, I think like just go along for the ride. I think it's very interesting, and I'm positive Cody's going to finish the story eventually. It probably will be at WrestleMania 40, but if it's not, I think even cooler. We're going to get more and more of this story and more storytelling. So, I think trust the process, and the booking at WWE for the last year or two, it seems to be really on it. And right now, with all these megastars they've got involved, and The Rock and Cody and Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins and Logan Paul and LA Knight, all these guys, I'm like, damn, like Randy Orton, like, oof, WWE's on fire. So just enjoy.
You've got your faith in them, have you? Then
for sure, for sure. Okay. Yeah,
I can see where the like semi-retired people like coming out every now and again does annoy people, especially if they're behind. If the people are behind someone who's hot or organically hot, like Cody Rhodes is, that I can totally kind of sympathize with them with their position on that. Honestly, man. So I don't think it's unwarranted to be kind of pissed off.
No, I don't. But at the same time, I get that. But it's not like, I mean, The Rock is a retired wrestler, but he's not just a retired wrestler. He's the freaking Rock,
I know.
I'm actually, because it seems like they're obviously going to go with Cody and Roman now, which is going to be cool to see Cody get his moment. But we saw Cody and Roman last year. I want to see Rock and Roman. And now we might not get that, full stop. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I'm sure we can get many, many more Cody and Roman matches down the line. Do you know what I mean?
I get that. Yeah, for sure.
If I was to book it, this is what I feel like I would have done this. Rock and Roman on the first night. Roman beats Rock. Roman versus Cody on the second night. Rock costs Cody the title, right? And aligns himself with Roman Reigns because Reigns beat The Rock. So Roman is the head of the table. He is the tribal chief, right? They're the bloodline. That sets up Cody to wrestle Rock at SummerSlam, which would be awesome. And then it would set up Cody and Roman free at next year's WrestleMania. Cody finally defeats the odds and wins the World Championship. Third time's a charm, third time lucky. And I know the majority of fans just would not accept that. But me looking at it from the business side, and thinking, okay, this is the hottest storyline I've got right now, this Cody and Bloodline stuff. I don't want to end it straight away because what's after that? Cody wins the title.
You're looking for longevity, like how you maximize what you have over a period.
Like, what would you rather happen? What I just said, right? Which is like SummerSlam, it's Rock and Cody working together. We fire promos. Or you want to see Cody as the champion, and at SummerSlam, he's defending the title against Nakamura. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love Nakamura. You know what I mean? Like, okay, it sounds like I'm knocking on that, which I'm not. I'm just saying, like, you know, that's not going to be the box office that Cody.
Right. That's not the draw.
You know I mean?
Yeah. That's not where the draw is. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I get it.
So I don't know, but I suspect they're going to do Cody and Roman. They've announced it now. Cody and Roman. Cody will win. And then I don't really know where they go from there. Maybe they will do Rock and Cody for the title at some point. So they can still do it, I guess. So again, I have faith in it though. I'm more interested in WWE programming than I have been in years. So good job, WWE.
Good job. Speaking of good job, WWE, we get another Triple H and Cactus Jack aggressive video package, but it isn't like, it's no way as good as the last week's, like the Royal Rumble 2000s ones. Let's be honest. Now, you'd think that they would use this as the lead in to the final match, the main event, but instead they cut to a backstage shot of Kurt Angle getting beaten and loaded into the trunk of his own car by Y2J and China. China, incidentally, cosplaying as Tinky Winky from the Teletubbies.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for the intermission, WWE, but we are here for our Hell in the Cell match, thank you.
Well, Sam, you know what? I'm just going to stop you right there because we are getting ready for the main event, the Hell in the Cell match. Mm-hmm. And I watched this Hell in a Cell match. Obviously, we're going to get into the review of it. I enjoyed it, but I don't necessarily think it would be in my top 5 favorite Hell in a Cell matches of all time, which obviously begs the question, what is my top 5 of Hell in a Cell matches of all time? So everyone, get ready because it's time for Marty and Sam's top 5. So I have a feeling that our top 5s will probably look similar, even though there has actually been a lot of Hell in a Cell matches now. But honestly, of course, all the ones I can really remember are from like, you know, the first handful of ones. But now they do a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view.
All the time, yeah.
Loads of Hell in a Cell matches. So yeah, my top 5 is obviously a little bit more back in the day. So I'm just going to go ahead with it right now and get to it. So I just want to say, first of all, Undertaker versus Big Boss Man from WrestleMania 15 Hell in a Cell match is not on my list. So you can have that sound. Have you seen that match before?
No, I haven't.
Oof. Without doubt, the worst Hell in a Cell match of all time. You still haven't seen the Kennel from Hell match either, have you? Which also had the Big Boss Man in it. Okay, Kennel from Hell, Big Boss Man versus Al Snow in a blue steel cage. Remember the blue steel cage?
Of course.
With like dogs around ringside and a Hell in a Cell over the top. And dude, it's just like, it's called Kennel from Hell. And it's like the worst match ever. It's embarrassing. The dogs are pooping on the floor. Oh, awful. And it's like they made the Hell in a Cell from what it was into that. Just ugh. And then Undertaker versus Boss Man, Hell in a Cell. I'm sure we're going to watch it at some point. WrestleMania 15. This is when Undertaker was going through his like ministry phase, and he hangs the Big Boss Man after the match.
I've seen that. Like I've seen clips of that. Yeah, I know.
so bad.
Kind of tasteless. Yeah.
Yes. But my top 5, a little bit better than that. So number 5, it's now normally, you know, I'm not a big fan of multi-man matches, but here I've got the 6-pack challenge: Kurt Angle, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Rikishi, Undertaker, and Triple H from Armageddon 2000. Some big names in this. Again, like I said, not the biggest fan of multi-man matches, but this match had a lot of star power. They all worked it really, really well, as you would expect with the names in this. Look, Kurt Angle, The Rock, Stone Cold, Triple H, Undertaker, Rikishi. This match, I guess, the reason why this is only number 5, despite it being a really good match, is at the time it felt like they booked themselves in a corner with Hell in a Cell matches where they felt like there needs to be a big bump off the cage. And they're like, oh, what can we do for a bump? How can we, you know, make a bump that's safe? And they had Rikishi being chokeslammed off the cage onto the truck they just happened to so be there with all the
loads of sawdust and padding.
Sawdust on top of a mattress, yeah. Which the bump was kind of, and also I think the bump ironically actually messed up Rikishi kind of bad. So and it makes you wonder, like, of all the guys, why Rikishi for that? But I guess the other guys were the bigger main eventers, so like,
and
right,
we're
Rikishi,
saying I'm not doing.
Yeah. But no, the match as a whole was pretty fun. Hell in a Cell match. My number 4, a little bit more contemporary, Batista versus Triple H, Vengeance 2005. Now, this sort of period, I started to kind of not really watch wrestling as much, but I remember, I don't know why, but a few years ago, I decided that it might have even been a year ago. For whatever reason, I decided to watch this match again, and it was really, really good. And I forgot how good Batista actually was. Like, very underrated, I think, as a wrestler. And this was the match, I feel like, that really broke out Batista. And I think this was the 3rd match with Triple H. And Triple H put him over like 3 times. And here in the Hell in a Cell, puts Batista over clean. And it was just a really brutal match. I've spoken before about how a lot of these main eventers, they need to have that kind of really brutal match to really kind of help get them over with the audience.
Cement that, yeah.
And I think this was Batista's one with the audience. He became like a really big star after this and a really big name. So this match, as well as just being a great match, obviously just the importance of it, getting Batista over as a massive superstar, it did the business that it was set out to do.
Yeah.
My number 3, Undertaker, it's a common name in this thread. Mm-hmm. Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar from No Mercy 2002. Now, this match, I just remember, again, this felt like a really big breakout match for Brock Lesnar. Super duper brutal. And he's just, throwing around Undertaker like he's nothing and just really aggressive and really, really, really good match. And the icing on the cake, it felt like there's this long Hell in a Cell match where Brock Lesnar is throwing around Undertaker, who's a big dude. Brock Lesnar wins. Then after the match, he still has like enough energy just to like climb up to the top of the cage and celebrate. And I was just like, wow, just like the cherry on top. Like Brock Lesnar is a machine. Most guys after a Hell in a Cell match would be selling dead, but there's Brock Lesnar just like, yeah, I'm an athlete. Let me climb that thing. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. My number 2. So now I'm split. I am split on my number 1 and my number 2. You can probably guess. So I wanted to say like joint first or joint second because they're kind of both on par for different reasons, but I've narrowed it down. I'm going to say my number 2 is Mankind and The Undertaker from the King of the Ring 98.
Yeah.
I would argue this is the greatest Hell in a Cell match of all time if we're talking about greatness and significantness.
Yeah.
But my number 1 is the Shawn Michaels and Undertaker Bad Blood match. That's my favorite. I thought the Shawn Michaels and Undertaker match was a little bit better actual wrestling match, but obviously you can't take away from the Mick Foley and Taker Hell in a Cell match. Just a complete spectacle that made Mick Foley. But realistically, it's really just about those 2 bumps, which again, I'm not taking away from it. Like that's incredible. Whereas obviously Shawn and Taker was more of a story and a match. So
yeah,
I like them obviously both for different reasons. Like I said, the Taker and Mick Foley is probably the greatest in terms of its sort of
significance for the match. Like for Hell in a Cell, it's super important.
Exactly.
Historically.
I thought like in ring, bell to bell, the Shawn and Taker one from Bad Blood, which was the first one, was the best one. So that's my number 1.
Awesome list, buddy. I actually haven't seen many Hell in a Cell matches, so if I've got some glaring omissions, that's why. I can only pick 5 out of the ones that I've seen, and I haven't seen Bad Blood 1997. The only part I've seen of that is actually, so that's Kane's debut, right?
Yes.
Pops up at the end, does the 2, yeah. So I've seen that bit, but I actually haven't seen the match, but I've heard it's a banger. Yeah, I've heard it's absolutely awesome, and if I've seen it, it probably will be in my top 5. I haven't seen it, so I've got one that you don't have in your top 5, but the other 4 you do, which is hilarious. Let me just get straight to this. So number 5, I've got Triple H versus Cactus Jack, No Way Out 2000. And if you don't mind, I'll kind of wait, and because we're just going to talk about it anyway. But it was good. I've never seen it before. I want to save my thoughts for the
save it.
for the podcast. Yeah. Number 4, I've got Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker, No Mercy 2002. Like you said, he's throwing around The Undertaker like he's a rag doll. He beats him clean. Like you said, he just seems like he is a beast, right?
Yes.
He climbs out at the end. It was just very, very good. It reminds me so much of playing Here Comes the Pain on the PS2, but in real life. Because it's just when you've got that game, you just make a Hell in a Cell, you pick Brock Lesnar, and you just do F5s, and it was a fantastic match. Number 3, I'm looking at this now. Number 3, I've got Batista versus Triple H, Vengeance 2005. But honestly, man,
you've said it now. You can't take it back.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to take it back, but it's so good. It probably should be number 1. But anyways.
I think a lot of people, some people, I think, consider that one like the best Hell in a Cell match. I mean, obviously, everyone's going to give you a different opinion, but people really liked the Mick Foley and Triple H Hell in a Cell, which we're about to review, which I didn't think was quite as good. But yeah, this Batista and Triple H match, really good. And like I said, from an era of wrestling, I kind of dipped out, but that match is still like a real classic.
Yeah, so what I like about it is you brought this up, not on this episode. I can't remember the context, but it's like, hey, Hell in a Cell shouldn't be a pay-per-view name. It should be a match type reserved for when it's needed. And I feel like this match is one of those, like a solid, this called for a Hell in a Cell, right? With these two guys. And Batista just looked like an animal. Well, at the animal, right? He really did. It was awesome. Number 2, I've got Armageddon 2000. The 6-man tag, the 6-man thingy. Okay, this is really entertaining, but it's got problems. So I love it from an entertainment standpoint. There's weird stuff like throughout. So first of all, Kurt Angle is the champion, right? He enters to the ring like 3rd. He's not 1st. He's our champion. He also leaves as the champion, but he actually has like the least to do in the match. Like there's so many gimmicks and so many things going on. True. Yeah. So it's just kind of an odd one. And just the fact that it's a 6-man tag where none of these people in any other capacity would be like sharing.
It's not a tag.
I know I keep saying tag, but
6-pack challenge, 6-person match. Yeah.
Yeah, like these are all people who should be doing like a 1 versus 1 main event. And there's 6 of them, and you never really see them that spread out normally.
I've got a question for you. If you could have made it a 1-on-1 match with the 6 participants that are in this match, who would you have picked?
For me, I really like the constant back and forth between Stone Cold and Triple H. What about you?
That's a pretty good shout. You know what? That's a really good shout. I would have liked to have seen Kurt Angle against The Undertaker in a Hell in a Cell. Okay. That would have been fun as well, huh?
Yeah, it would. So that's... Go on.
Well, I was going to say, what was quite fun about this match, obviously they did this whole deal to set up the bloody truck coming to ringside, which is all kind of
pull off the door, yeah.
Yeah, but I will say this, like, the way they tried to lead into that, the idea was that Vince McMahon did not want this match to happen. I guess Mick Foley, Commissioner Foley booked it, and Vince didn't want it to happen because it's such a dangerous match, and he didn't want any of these big superstars getting injured because it's such a lethal, dangerous match type. And I felt like at least that part and the concern from Vince did a really good job of portraying the match as a dangerous match as it should be. Unlike now where they're like, we've got a pay-per-view called Hell in a Cell. Like, our pay-per-view, it's hell. Like, what? Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And that's actually why this is number 2 for me, like why it's so high up there. They did a lot of good. Rock did funny promos around this time, like when he criticized, he talks about them all. Do you remember that? It's like, we've got the Stone Cold, the Texas Rattlesnake, we've got this, we've got the game, we've got this, and we've got drink milk. It's good for your bones.
Oh yeah.
Like all of the like classic promos. We've got, like you said, Vince McMahon, like it's just, they just leading up to it. It was a really solid build up, and it was still a good match in its own right. It was just it just had issues, but it was super good, super entertaining. Obviously, number 1, I've got King of the Ring 1998, and I understand that as a wrestling match, there's no wrestling in it. There's no wrestling, and I get that, and I understand why people might think it's maybe overrated or like I said, not a wrestling match. But like you said, it's just for the legacy of Hell in a Cell. It's so important. It solidifies like the whole mystique of Hell in a Cell, like the violence and the danger and just the high stakes and the energy and everything about it just, is encapsulated in this one match, like whatever you think. And there's a reason why they're still using it to this day, like the promo pieces of Mick Foley flying off into the announcers table. It's got the most memories and it's got the most nostalgia, and that does play for me a significant role, because this isn't if it was what's the best, then Batista versus Triple H would be number one. We talk about my favorite, and I think about this match a lot, so number one.
So I felt like this match kind of, I would say, like, made Mick Foley, certainly turned him into that
I agree,
legendary status. It's funny though, this match is quite interesting. Let me see if you agree with me. But I felt like this match both made the Hell in a Cell match and also killed the Hell in a Cell match. Do you think that's fair to say?
I think I know where you're going with this. That's actually a really good take, because it can never get to that point again. Yeah,
exactly. Like,
zoomed out of the gate by this point. Yeah,
it is like it made, after that, it was like, damn, Hell in a Cell. We want to see a Hell in a Cell match. That's an incredible match type. But nothing afterwards could ever follow it, right? And they've tried so many attempts to replicate it, because, like I was saying, like, with that 6-pack challenge, they're like, oh, we need someone to come off the cell. And it's like, when you've booked yourself into a corner like that, that's not a good thing. And they've tried, WWE throughout the years. I mean, they have, they've kind of changed the perception of the cage match where people aren't expecting it now. And even if they do come off the cage, I want to say maybe Shane McMahon came off one in the last 5 years, but clearly jumped into a big crash pad. And, like, I'm not suggesting that's, I still wouldn't like to do that, but it's obviously not the same effect as Mick Foley going through the announcers table or going through to the ring. But yeah, it made Mick Foley, but it kind of hot-shotted it and kind of ruined it for the Hell in a Cell, I would want to say. And it's almost
I completely agree.
After that Hell in a Cell match, you can get like one more cell match where you kind of steal a payday. You get the fans to pay for it, and then, like, oh, they're not getting the big stunt this time. It's interesting though. Like, there probably wouldn't be a pay-per-view now of Hell in a Cell if that Foley match didn't happen. Right. But I think if anything, it made Mick Foley. So yeah, definitely a spectacle. That's for sure.
To be honest, man, I love gimmicks, but I just prefer a classic steel cage match to Hell in a Cell. Yeah, I do.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
My top 5, incidentally, are all ones that I feel like required the Hell in a Cell in order to tell a story or to function, which is important. Because, like, for example, like the Usos had a good Hell in a Cell match, but, like, it didn't need to be in Hell in a Cell. It just happened to be a good match.
Well, the thing they do now, they do the Hell in a Cell matches, and they all just get out loads of weapons from underneath the ring.
Yeah.
Like canes and trash cans and chairs and tables. And I'm like, to me, that's just kind of overkill. It's like, your gimmick is the cage, right? I don't know. I don't feel like, to me, that's kind of like overkill. I don't know. I guess they're trying to portray the hell part inside the cell, and they don't want the guys climbing out of it and everything else. But yeah.
Marty.
Yes.
Do you say Hell in the Cell or Hell in a Cell?
Hell in the Cell, Hell in the Cell, Hell in the Cell. I don't know. You tell me what I've been saying all episode. Hell in the Cell. I
can't tell. Yeah. Because some people call it Hell in a Cell. Some people call it Hell in the Cell. I say a Cell.
Have you seen that meme on, I saw it on something where someone on Facebook had messaged someone and the person's name was like Helena, and the last name was like Cell, like S-E-L-L. And like someone messaged her saying, like, I remember when Undertaker threw Mick Foley off you. That was pretty
I love that sort of thing.
We should probably talk about this. Let's do it. Yeah.
So, okay, here it is. I mean, let's just talk about it. This is the 24-minute Hell in a Cell World Championship match. Okay. Triple H, Cactus Jack. I said earlier, I had no idea who would win this, as in, I mean, I pretty much knew what happened because of WrestleMania 2000 and, what we've been talking about. But like from the match perspective, it's like, damn, this could literally go any way. And I was actually surprised that Triple H won. This was a good match and it was a good Hell in a Cell. You don't seem too enamored with it. So do you want to start? Do you want to go first?
I think first of all, we should say this was the condition of the match is that if that Mick Foley loses, he has to retire.
Yes.
Obviously, he gave it away. Now he does lose and he does retire for all of 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah, exactly. No, I thought this was a good match. I thought it was I mean, Triple H, he's such a good worker, and Mick Foley was obviously great at what he did. I thought the whole match was pretty good. I felt like, here's my issue with it, right? Because I actually have quite a few issues.
I have issues with it too.
Okay,
you go.
So in the build up to it, Mick Foley kept saying that he was going to get on top of the cage and like throw Triple H off or whatever, right?
Throw himself off again, but this
Yes.
time it will be in through Triple H's body instead of through the table. Yeah.
So if you watch the match, it feels like the crowd is just not as into it, and especially they're not into the false finishes until they break through the cage and get out of it, because the whole time the crowd's just watching or waiting, for them to get on top of the cell. So I felt like that was a really stupid thing to say, like, we're going to go up on top of there. Because it's like, if you're going to say that, you might as well start the match at the top there, like you did the Taker and Foley one. Because, the crowd, they're trying to do like false finishes in the ring, and the crowd's just not really reacting. So, like, right, get on top of the cell. We want to see someone get thrown off. So that I thought was a little silly. Obviously, the action they did in the ring was really good and brutal. And Triple H, like I said, he's so good. They finally break out of the cage. And I thought, how are they going to do this where it makes sense for Triple H to climb up there? And they kind of did it. What was the reason for him to climb up there? Did Foley put the thing on fire? But he didn't do that till he's at the top, right?
No, he did put it on until he was up there. But he got it out, and Triple H was like, no, I'm not doing this. Yeah. Trying to get away from him. Yeah. He already busted Triple H open with it at once by that point. Like, he already hit him straight on the head with it. And then after that, Triple H said, I don't want to be hit anymore. Which I understand. Yeah, I'm cool with. Maybe
it would have worked better if they had done the barbed wire bat the month before. And then Triple H climbs up. Then Mick Foley tries, I think he has 3 or even 4 attempts at trying to throw a cage on top of the cell, which it gets to the point where it's embarrassing, so the camera doesn't even show him trying to throw up there.
It's just like cuts to Triple H, just like a real extreme close-up of his face.
Right.
About a minute.
Yeah, and then...
And you can just hear the attempts off camera.
Yeah, and the crowd groaning. Then they finally get up there, and then Triple H has to... Mick Foley has to set the 2x4 on fire, because he's trying to top what they did at the Royal Rumble. And I just feel like when you're trying to top stuff, it just... because clearly they're trying to top the Royal Rumble. So they set the thing on fire. Then they're trying to top the Mick Foley getting thrown off the cage. And they do it here where he does the bump. Mick Foley. Well, what's really funny is Mick Foley actually takes a massive bump when he's on the side of the cage, kind of like the first Shawn Michaels bump in the Hell in a Cell. Mick Foley's on the side of the cage and he falls off through the announcer's table. And that is like a big, awful bump to take. And that bump I completely forgotten about. And I think everyone else has completely forgotten about that bump. Like, he took that really big bump. No one remembers it, right? That's how, like, at this point, we're just like,
so desensitized to his...
Desensitized, which is an issue. And then they do the bump, the backdrop through the ring or through the cage, and he breaks through the ring. And I just felt like as soon as he hit the ring and it kind of caved in, I felt like everyone knew that it was a planned spot and it was fake. And I felt like the reaction wasn't even really there. And it wasn't even sold like before. Like when he went through it with Taker and hit the ring, as soon as he hits it, you hear the commentary just absolutely losing their SHIT. And like everyone jumps in the ring, like referees, security, like Terry Funk, his friend, is in there checking on him like, oh my God, he's dead. Whereas here, he goes through it and like everyone's kind of like, oh, he landed in a big mattress, which it probably wasn't. It probably did suck to take, but it just didn't look that impressive. And I just felt like, to me, I thought the bump was underwhelming. And honestly, I felt like it took away from the whole entire match.
I mean, it totally did. And I use the word organic a lot, and it's probably getting annoying, but they're like the need to, the feel like they need to like top what happened last time. Again, like just doesn't feel organic. It's like, oh, but so now it's on fire this time instead of just not on fire last time. And it just seems a little bit desperate. I'm not just talking about this match. I'm going to talk about, I think, in general, when things just try and top something for the sake of it.
Yeah.
So, but it really did kind of feel like it here. About the energy of this match, this made my top 5, but at number 5 solely because I feel like the Hell in a Cell was needed for the story with these two. So it's like, it was perfect for that. Like the situation called for it. As for the energy of the match was kind of lacking in some weird ways. You've picked up on a few. immediately, we're talking about Cactus Jack. We're not talking about Mankind. We're not talking about Mick Foley, right? This is Cactus Jack, but he didn't behave like Cactus Jack. He wasn't feral.
It was more Mick Foley.
He was Mick Foley. So, like, Cactus Jack doesn't immediately try and like exit, be like, and gingerly rattle the gate. It's like, oh, it's locked. You know, even if it was to like get out and do something crazy, it just came across like his body language, like, oh, I want to come out. Seemed weak, and that's not Cactus Jack. Yeah. So that immediately felt like something was off.
Here's a question. Let me ask you this: do you think that the fans A wanted to see Mick Foley win the World Championship, B didn't want Mick Foley to lose and retire, or C wanted to see Mick Foley get thrown off the cage, or Triple H, either or four of them, someone come off the cage? Which
C.
one do they want the most? C. Right?
Yeah.
That's a problem, right? It's like we've done this whole story about his retirement, this whole story about him trying to capture the World Championship, and then the fans are just like, we want to see someone get thrown off the cage. That's the first and foremost thing they wanted.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
Kind of ruined the match really for me.
Yeah, it did. And I will say, and it's one thing in its defense was, when he goes through the cage and it just like opens so cleanly and he goes through, and I'm sure like that was kind of like made to break to make it obviously a much safer landing than King of the Ring 98. Triple H and Stephanie sold it very well. Yeah. Like they tried to make it as
they're all amazing performers.
Yeah, there's this bit. So like when he goes through, Triple H is almost like, oh my God, what have I done? Like he wants to look away. He's like almost feels sick with what he's done. And then it cuts to Stephanie like through the cage, and she just looks unhinged. So like she's like more salivating about this than like Triple H.
I actually thought that was kind of hokey.
I kind of enjoyed it because it kind of it was like, oh, okay, so now we're kind of understanding the dynamic behind those two, like that we don't see. Like, I kind of enjoyed that.
Do you know what I thought of when we saw Stephanie McMahon do that? I thought last week, Royal Rumble 2000, how Jeff Hardy told Terry Runnels off and told her she could not come to the ring for his tables match because it was too extreme.
And
but Triple H is there for a Hell in a Cell match with Cactus Jack. Bearing in mind, at the Royal Rumble, they basically killed each other, blood everywhere. And he's like, yeah, come along, wife. Come. An even more dangerous match with this dangerous wrestler. You can be right there.
You're right. You are right. Yeah, that is pretty funny. Yeah, why was she there? Yeah,
that just shows how much of a piece of crap Triple H really is. Huh?
So do you think it would have sold the legitimacy of the event more if she was made to sit like backstage and it would cut to her backstage doing this?
I didn't really. I mean, that could have been kind of cool, I guess. Yeah.
Watching on monitors or something.
Yeah, and it didn't really bother me that massively, like, as opposed to everything else. But yeah, and I feel like I've been kind of hard on it because it is a good match. And I feel like people actually really like this match. I think Mick Foley liked this match as well. But a lot of the things, like I said, there's quite a big disconnect for me. And also, it's just quite strange them trying to do this like emotional ending, like where Mick Foley's doing the walk away and the wave to the crowd and thank you, Foley. And there's Jim Ross putting it over on commentary, like thanking Mick for all these years of service in the business. And then we know he's going to be back in like less than a month's time. It's just kind of like
rings hollow.
It all meant nothing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And that doesn't help. That does, like, you get docked points for that. I think the fact that it's not authentically portrayed. Now, did you prefer this to the street fight, the Royal Rumble 2000 street fight between them, or did you prefer that? Obviously, I prefer the street fight. You do? Yeah, me too.
I prefer the street fight for sure. No, honestly, overall, I will say I actually really quite enjoyed this show. I felt like I enjoyed it maybe more than I thought I would. There was a couple of dips in the show, but that's kind of to be expected. But overall, I thought there was like a handful of really fun matches, a lot of like big characters and over wrestlers. And I thought it was pretty refreshing. I would almost say I maybe even enjoyed it more than Royal Rumble 2000.
Wowzers. I won't get upset. That's fine. It's your opinion.
What would you say was... Oh, go on. You're going to ask me.
I was going to ask you.
The same question.
Yeah.
Our favorite match. Okay, our favorite match.
For me, it was the Hell in a Cell.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What
about you?
Honestly, there was quite a few that I really liked.
Xpac and Kane was good too, though.
I really liked Xpac and Kane. I actually really liked Too Cool vs. the Radicalz.
Yeah, I did.
And I also liked Angle and Jericho.
Yeah, I did.
I think it's between the two.
It was a good pay-per-view.
It was between Too Cool and the Radicalz and Xpac and Kane. I think I'm going to give it to Too Cool and Radicalz because Xpac and Kane used a lot of gimmicks and smoke and mirrors, whereas Too Cool Radicalz, I feel like was just a really good wrestling match. So
It was a good match. Yeah.
I'm going to give it to Too Cool and the Radicalz. The worst match on the show, I think it's probably pretty obvious that, well, actually it's not.
The thing is, I thought you were going to say it's pretty obvious it's Viscera versus Mark
I was
Henry
actually going to say Tazz.
because Tazz and Bossman was so bad and so quick that you may have forgot about it already. For me, it's that, dude.
You thought Tazz and that was worse than Henry and Viscera? It probably was, right? Yeah. Like the Tazz thing served no purpose whatsoever. Do you know what I mean?
That's the thing. Yeah. Like,
at least people popped when Mae Young came out. Like, no, they were just in complete silence.
There was no redeeming factor for that entire Tazz thing, you know? So it was pointless. It was worse than pointless.
It was. Overall rating for the show, what are you thinking?
So I think a 3.5 for me.
I was going to say 3.5 too.
All right. Well, there we go.
Which is still a high rating, by the way, people. I know if you look at like Google and you see 3.5 for a restaurant, you think that sucks, and it probably does. But 3.5 is like one better than average. Do you know what I mean?
You said that you preferred this to Royal Rumble 2000, that you gave a 3.75.
Oh, did I? Oh, maybe I didn't then.
You want to drop my favorite pay-per-view down a peg?
No.
My problem with this is why I scored it low, 3.5 as opposed to like a 4, was there were like the low, how do I put this? The lows in Royal Rumble 2000, the bikini thing and like everything was like, it was still technically entertaining, albeit in a bad way. Whereas here, I just like, there was some, like you said, the crowd themselves were lulling like halfway through. So
I think I rated the Royal Rumble higher just because I had such a nostalgic feeling towards it, because as we discussed,
these ratings are subjective, like of course nostalgia plays a part in it.
That Rumble 2000, I remember watching it on Channel 4 and watched it a whole bunch of times. This I have less of a connection to, but no, I think maybe I'll give this a 3.75 as well, then same as Royal Rumble. There we go. Now everybody's happy.
Yep. All right, then would you recommend that people check out the entire pay-per-view as opposed to just trying to find the Hell in a Cell match on WWE, like their YouTube channel or something? I think I would.
Yeah.
Like the Radicalz match, if you want to see some good wrestling, that was a clean match. It was super good. Xpac and Kane, super entertaining. I would too.
Yeah, Jericho and Angle was good.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a little harsh on it, but like it's fun to watch the Hardyz and Edge and Christian. Even watching like the Outlaws and Dudleyz, watching, it was kind of fun. So yeah, main event was still whatever. And
solid.
I'd say overall solid show. So Sam,
this is a solid. The best way to describe this pay-per-view is solid. Like it's not
solid,
super. It's not boring. It's just like it's a solid pay-per-view. It's solid entertainment.
Absolutely.
All right then.
Well, Sam, we're getting ready for the big one next week, I guess. WrestleMania 2000. We've had 2 pretty strong pay-per-views leading into WrestleMania 2000. Will WrestleMania 2000 live up to the height and the standards that these previous pay-per-views have set up? I would be interested to know. And I guess I do kind of know, but I'm going to...
We both know. We know.
But yeah, guys, if you've listened this far, thank you. And please listen to us next week as we'll be doing WrestleMania 2000. And one more time, go give us a bloody review. The podcast is over now, so go give us a 5-star review. And even in your review, you can let us know what you thought about these pay-per-views, and we'll read it out on the show next week. Thank you, guys.
And subscribe to us at The Villain Pod on all of the socials, but particularly YouTube. And that would make us super happy indeed. Check out No Way Out 2000. It was a solid pay-per-view. And that's all I have to say this week. So have a good week. Till next week.